Hello and welcome on to another episode of the ISO Ball Podcast with your host, Derek Terrio, your place to learn about the NBA on and off the court. If you see it on YouTube, you'll see that Nick Raponi is joining me. If not, you'll have to hear the audio of me telling you that I'm joined by Nick Raponi. Nick, welcome on. It's been quite a while since I think the awards pod was the last one we did. How you been since then?
Yeah, the awards pod's the last one I did. All things been well. I've just been doing my best, staying in quarantine. Stay home, people. The more we stay home, the sooner we'll be able to go to sporting events. So
yeah exactly.
Totally things have been good, I guess. Enjoyed The Last Dance, that's for sure. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely did too, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We're going to go through, all 10 episodes of The Last Dance. We'll get a little granular, but we're not going to go like episode by episode and do them all because, I found going back and looking back through all like the stuff that happened, it was tough to, gain all of the granular details and like put it together from episode 1 through 10. Like there's a lot of stuff I forgot from episode, 1 and 2. I could just kind of take away the big picture ideas, and then I had to go and like read some reviews and
for sure
just try to remember everything again,
Oh, for sure. I'm the same way. It's 10 episodes, right? Just under an hour each episode. Like it's a decent amount of content. Like you're obviously going to forget some stuff, especially it's not like a TV show. I don't know. It's different, right? It's documentary style. So you're definitely bound to forget a little bit of stuff. I did the same thing. I went back and reviewed a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, totally. So let's start big picture here. Like, what did you think of the doc? And let's kind of give the qualifier here. I think it's fair to say neither of us watched Michael Jordan in his heyday when he was with the Chicago Bulls. At least I can speak for myself and say I didn't. I think
mathematically I didn't either.
Well, there you go. That's my point. Like, I don't know. Maybe you were watching Michael Jordan when you were 4 years old in '98. Like, that's possible. That's why I didn't want to speak for you. Yeah. But I know you saw Wizards Jordan.
Yeah, Wizards Jordan I watched. I actually saw him live.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
well, that's pretty cool. But that wasn't even mentioned in this doc, and we'll get to that a little bit. But overall, having no perspective of watching Jordan live and seeing him, like, what did you think? What kind of stuck out? What did you take away?
Like from his game, or like just him as a person?
Just wherever you want to go with it. What stuck out to you?
Okay, first and foremost, motivation. That guy would find anything to motivate himself. He'd make things up, things that didn't even happen.
I wrote down a list of them. I actually wrote down a list of them.
Hey, let's hear it.
There was Jerry Krause. Yeah. There was Brian Russell's trash talk when he was playing baseball. There was Michael Jordan being compared to Clyde Drexler. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
Jerry Krause said Dan Marley was a good defender. Marley for the Suns. He said, okay, I'm going to toast him. And then Karl Malone and Barkley won the MVPs. He's like, okay, if they won the MVPs, I'm just going to go get the championship.
100%.
George Karl ignoring him at the restaurant when he said hi to him. LeBradford Smith literally just said, nice game, Mike. And that was enough for him to just say, oh, I'm going to kill this guy.
Reggie Miller. Wasn't LeBradford Smith the one that didn't happen?
Yeah, and that was about, my last one was made up motivations. Like some of these might not even happen. Some of these he probably I'm probably missing some. And some of these he might have just made up.
Well, you missed Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, and perfect example. Like Isaiah Thomas I was missing. Like, well, that was just basically he just gets beat up. You know what I mean? He was just getting physically beat up.
We'll talk about Isaiah Thomas a little later, but with Isaiah Thomas, obviously Isaiah Thomas started this feud, but come on, Jordan. Let it go. You know what I mean? Let it go.
He's never going to let it go. And then the last one I had was the Reggie Miller trash talk and then made up motivations. And I probably missed some, but it's a good point. Like all of what you said is so true. Like his motivation, think about how much you have to gain and how much you have to suck out of your surroundings to be able to fuel that competitive drive for 6 championships and even longer being in the league. You're right, the motivation stuck out to me too. I totally agree.
It's insane. That guy, that was the biggest takeaway for me. Was obviously I knew he was a winner. The guy won realistically for him 6 straight championships, you know what I mean? So obviously we all knew he was a winner if you followed basketball. It's just how he got to that spot was like the motivation, everything behind it. I knew he was a gambler. I knew all that stuff. I knew a lot of the – there was obviously tons of stuff in this Last Dance I didn't know. There was obviously a lot of the stuff too I did know. I knew he was a huge gambler. I knew a lot of that stuff too. But all things considered, like, yeah, you knew he was a winner going into this. It's just the motivation. You didn't know how he got to that point. And some of those stories were just awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. No, I definitely agree. Like, and there was so much to, like to his motivations too, like you mentioned, like a lot of them were like made up, and I think he was just finding I think he like there was one. Remember when he was like with his security guards when he was like throwing nickels or quarters against the wall,
Yeah.
and like he lost to a security guard, the guy that gave like the shrug, the
Oh,
iconic
dude,
one or whatever.
I admit, that's a point I had. John Michael Wozniak giving the
Yeah,
Jordan shrug. That was the highlight of the entire Last Dance. There
yeah,
was no better moment in the entire Last Dance than the
right. And
Jordan
like,
shrug from Wozniak.
but like what I wanted to talk about was like if you heard, he said he gave the guy 4-1 odds to beat him.
Oh, I
He's
know.
like, I'll give you 4 shots to beat my one. And like I got the feeling like he just wanted to lose just to be angry. Like I don't think he even wanted to win. I think he just wanted to lose to be angry before the game started. Like I swear to God, like he's that maniacal of a competitor.
I wouldn't put it past him. I really wouldn't put it past him. I love the one story. I think it was Steve Kerr. I could be wrong. How like at the back of the bus or the back of the plane, I can't remember which one. Probably the plane. They were playing big, like putting like thousands a hand, right? Like they were playing big card games. And then at the front of the bus, like Steve Kerr and a few of the others were playing like buck of hands, like $1 a hands. And then Jordan comes up and he's just like, "What you guys playing? I want to come play." And they're like, "Mike, we're playing for $1 a hand here. Like, you don't want this." He's like, "Nah, I want to play because I want your money in my wallet." Like anything to get that guy motivated. Like that guy would just love competition.
Right. It wasn't even about, and I guess that's a good segue into the gambling stuff is like, he said like, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competition problem.
For sure.
And yeah, I know I even wrote it down here. Like, I just want to
I'm going to use that quote from now on, by the way. Like whenever my Bet365 account's in the hole, I'm going to start using it's a competition problem, not a
it's funny, like it really is, but like it kind of got me worried because like he talks about it and he says, "Look, my wife hasn't left me, my kids aren't starving, I'm not pawning off my jewelry." I was like, Mike, that's like it's too late by then. Like that's when like you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's when you've hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
you don't want to hit rock bottom.
Late by then, and you know, obviously he has so much damn money that like it's ridiculous, you know. So like even the thousands of dollars that he's betting, like it's just nothing to Mike, right? Just because you know his money and stuff like that. But like there was one part like where you know he owed some guy like a big ton of money, and like it got out into the media, and it you know was like overlapping into his career, and now he's having to answer questions about what was his hobby off the court, gambling, and like this thing that was a hobby turned into a bit of a problem for him on the court, having to answer the questions with this media and stuff like that. So I thought that was an interesting kind of dynamic where Mike's fun on the side really turned out to be a bit of a problem for him on the court in terms of having to monitor distractions when trying to perform at his best.
I'll argue that. I'll say like, okay, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time I'm going to say he didn't let it affect him at all, like because he didn't care. Like he was never one of those guys like he said, like when people the only thing that upset him, and it would drive me insane too, was when people said after his father was killed, maybe it was a gambling.
Right.
Bet.
That was
terrible.
That's one of my examples, right? Like that'll hit you. That'll hit home.
Yeah. Like that would be enough to drive me insane. But like for the most part, he didn't really let it affect him. He was still Mike. He still came out and averaged his 30 plus points a game. He still came out and he won. Like I don't think it really affected him at any point in his life. Like obviously he owed some money at one point, but there was never a point. I mean, obviously we don't know. We weren't close enough to Jordan as personal, like on a personal level. But to me, it didn't seem like there was ever a point where gambling caused problems in his life.
Yeah, maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, but that example that you said was the one I was thinking of, where they, when his dad died and they thought, oh man, like it's probably connected to his gambling debts. Like that was the one that really made me think like, oh shit, like that really hit home. And another one, I can't remember who said the quote. I think it was maybe David Aldridge, where he said, look, you're going to drive Mike out of this game because you're bullying the guy with these damn questions. And so that really
sounds like a DA quote.
Yeah, so, it's true. And he was great throughout this talk, I might add.
Oh yeah. Honestly, he was so great. I felt like in 2K, I always skip him because I just want to play. Like I feel bad. It goes from Kevin Harlan to DA, and then you just skip him. It's like, thanks, DA. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I feel bad skipping him now. I'm gonna start listening to him. Maybe he's got some good things to say.
He's
I don't
good.
know.
Yeah, he's it's funny you mentioned that. But yeah, that's really all I meant. Maybe I overstated it a little bit, but it was a big part of this documentary, and there was quite a bit of time spent on it. I just want to talk about some of the stuff that I found quite interesting. I wrote a lot of it. First of all, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a fantastic documentary. I enjoyed all of it. Right down from episode 1 to episode 10. I'd say this document is definitely a lot of pro Jordan. There's not a lot of aspects of Jordan's career.
But it's from Jordan's perspective, right? You know what I mean? Rachel Nichols, I believe, is the one who made a big point of that. So you got to remember, like, obviously Jerry Krause has passed away, so we can't get his perspective. Right. Like, this is mostly,
and they didn't mention that, by the way, throughout the doc, which I thought was really interesting. They shit on the guy for almost 10 episodes, and then they don't even mention that he's dead. I was like, come on, man, at least mention it somewhere that he can't defend himself.
No, exactly. I feel bad. Like, what's his face? Reinsdorf tried. Like, Reinsdorf did his best to say what he was trying to say, but you don't know. Like, we'll talk about Jerry Krause in a minute. I want to talk about him later. Have his own topic, but yeah,
sure. But just some of the stuff that I thought was pro Jordan is the one that was crazy was the Magic series, where after he came back from baseball, he had a little bit of the regular season to get his legs back, and then he was playing from what I looked back and saw, he was playing really good in the Magic series. And they painted it, and Tim Grover, his trainer, and a lot of media members painted it out to be he just didn't have his legs. He just was he just wasn't himself after coming back from baseball. When in reality, I think he just got beat by a better team, which was Penny Hardaway, incredible player, Shaquille O'Neal, Horace Grant, Dennis Scott. This is good players.
100%.
Good team. There's no shame in losing to that team. That team is good.
100%. I think it's 90% that, and then 10% baseball shape and basketball shape is just totally different. You could be in impeccable baseball shape, but it's not great basketball shape. And you could be in impeccable basketball shape, but it's not great baseball shape. So getting the transfer of getting in good shape for each sport is, I think, what takes a while. Just because you look like you're physically in good shape and good. He was playing well, though. He definitely was. So that's why it's 90%, I think. He just lost to a better team.
I definitely don't want to make it seem like that had nothing to do with it, but at the same time, to say it was everything. We're they're making it seem like it was 90-10 the other way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know. But it's Jordan's perspective, right?
Right.
Or I guess, I don't know. Jordan wouldn't admit he necessarily wasn't ready physically, but he also wouldn't admit that Orlando was a better team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, that's true, right? No, I totally with you on that. Jordan as the tyrant, I think most of us knew this, going into the doc, that he berated a lot of his teammates, expected a lot out of them, punched Steve Kerr in the face. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about the intricacies, of that, because we kind of got to witness that with with Kobe, right? Because that was kind of our Jordan, if you will, right?
MJ
Jr., and I didn't realize how similar the two actually were. Because a lot of what Kobe did, and obviously we know that he modeled his entire life after Jordan. It's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same stuff outside of punching Steve Kerr in the face. I don't know if Kobe did that to anybody, but
we don't know.
Outside of that, it's a lot of the same stuff. And the last thing and just from Michael Jordan's perspective, obviously there's other players we'll get into. I liked that I saw the different sides of Michael Jordan. The way he talked about, his father, after he won the championship on Father's Day and him crying with the basketball on the floor, that was quite a moment. It was tough to talk about him as a role model, saying look, almost saying, look, you don't want to be Michael Jordan. Being Michael Jordan is a very tough job. Having to go out,
of course.
As soon as he leaves, into the media, leaves his hotel room, the spotlight is on him at all times. And it was so tough to even just walk around, and you had to walk on eggshells, even though, he got into a little bit, of trouble here and there. But I think it was just interesting to see the different dynamics of Michael Jordan, because he's a very reserved guy outside of, him crying at Kobe's funeral, the crying at the Hall of Fame speech. Outside of that, you don't really see the different, sides of Mike.
No, I agree.
So I was kind of interested to see that as well, at least from Mike's perspective.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all that. Because we all know Jordan on the court. We knew a little bit about him off the court in terms of the tyrant he was, but it was nice to get a insider's perspective and what drove him to be that tyrant. That was nice to see as well. I know before the documentary, people were saying or Jordan, I think it was Jordan said, "Oh, you might hate me after you watch the documentary." I gained respect for him. I
I,
don't hate
I
him.
don't see why he was saying that. Like,
Yeah, that was just a dumb kind of
I
thing to
don't know.
say, in my opinion. But
I
whatever,
think
we won't talk about that.
Well, I think maybe he was saying that to the people who like had zero idea about who Michael
Yeah,
Jordan was. Like
other
they
than he
just
was a
think like
good
he's this
basketball player.
right that he's just this godly iconic figure. And I know nothing about him other than he's like the best basketball player that's ever lived, and I'm gonna watch the documentary about him. I think, but I agree. I learned a lot about him, and yeah, I gained some respect for Jordan. Like I definitely did, and it was good to
For
learn
sure.
about kind of all the different aspects of him and the Bulls, even though I didn't get to watch them.
Yeah.
I think another thing I want to touch on here is Jerry Krause, because Jerry Krause, the general manager of the Bulls, former scout for the Chicago White Sox, got brought on by Jerry Reinsdorf. And at the beginning of the show,
Reinsdorf owns both teams, for those
correct.
who don't know.
Yeah, correct. He owns the White Sox and the Bulls. That's right. And, at the beginning of the show, at the very beginning, he's painted as like this villain. Like he's painted as this guy that's like holding the Bulls back.
From episode 1.
Yeah, and just like from episode 1, and it really kind of trickles down into Mike is joking around with him, saying like, oh, those diet pills, like, oh, you want to shoot layups with us, we'll lower the rim. Scottie Pippen like making fun of him at the back of the bus, like he really like he got it bad. He got it bad. And by the end of the documentary, after assessing everything, I get it. Like Krause was maybe too full of himself. He probably wanted more credit than he probably deserved. But I think he's getting more shit in the documentary than he should as well, because I think he deserves some credit. I went through some of the stuff that he did. Look, he drafted Scottie Pippen and Tony Kukoc. He traded Charles Oakley for Bill Cartwright, which was part of that three-peat. That was huge.
That was like a win-win, though. I'm not going to say that was like both teams won there.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm not talking about the Knicks. I'm just talking about like –
yeah, Krause is – yeah, continue what you're saying, because I'll talk about my opinions of Krause once you're done.
Sure. Okay. So he brought in Dennis Rodman from the Pistons. He made the change to go from Doug Collins to Phil Jackson when Doug Collins just took them to the conference finals. He was right there, just took them to the conference finals and says, no, we're going to bring in Phil Jackson. And what's not mentioned throughout this, but I think is very true, is, look, he is the spark and the guy who provided motivation, which we talked about, for Michael Jordan throughout his whole career. He was so angry
in the 90s,
at Jerry Krause. Like, oh, yeah, well, in the 90s. Sorry, not – in the 90s.
But I know, when they won.
Yeah, when he won. Like, he was the motivation. Look, he talked about how when he played Tony Kukoc against Croatia, he said like, "Oh, me and Scotty thought we were playing Jerry Krause in a Croatian jersey." Yeah. Like Dan Marley said, or Krause said Dan Marley was a good defender. Oh, okay, I'm just gonna torch him then if he thinks he's a good defender. Like like so much of his motivation was based off of his hate for Jerry Krause, and unintentionally, he's a big part of why Jordan where he is today, and they just don't mention that at all. They paint him as this villain without actually talking about the little deeper effects that he had that maybe Jordan doesn't even realize.
No, I didn't really even think about that. Like that's because we were talking so much about motivation. They talked so much about motivation. That's a really good point. Jerry Krause was the king, like the prime motivator. Like there was all these other sub motivators for Jordan, but Jerry Krause was like the fire in the stomach. Like that's what really got him, which was interesting. Yeah, without Jerry Krause, who knows? Right.
That's what I'm saying. Right. And especially if we're going to credit so much of Jordan's success to the way he kept himself motivated for so many years. I mean, if you're not going to point to Jerry Krause, then he's going to have to find motivations elsewhere. And maybe he could. I mean, the guy was willing to make up stuff for motivation.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that at all. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Jerry Krause definitely helped more than he hurt, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Like in my eyes, at the end of the day, he had Michael Jordan, but he's still one of the better general managers in NBA history. I'm going to go that far. Like he really
says that at the end of the doc. He says, I played for the best general manager in the history of the game.
Like he probably is. Realistically, let's think about it. Okay, yes. He screwed up. He screwed up at the start of 98 when he said, this is the last year. We're going to rebuild next year. Phil Jackson's gone, blah, blah, blah. That was a screw up. You never do that at the beginning of the year. Like that's just stupid. But outside of that, he was an unreal GM. Unreal. And think about this too. Like we both like football. Obviously we love basketball. We both like football too. Star players, there's and a lot of times when they play star players, when they play for the same team for a long time, eventually, especially with the same GM the whole time, eventually the relationship sours. Like, it's just the way it is, because a general manager's job is to have consistent success. A player's job is to have success while they're there. So, for example, look at the draft this year. Aaron Rodgers, he was a little pissed off they drafted a quarterback in round 1 because they're in win now mode. But at the same time, the GM's got to look for the future. That's what he did with Rodgers. They had Favre and they drafted Rodgers in round 1. So they're doing the same thing now. So yeah, Rodgers understands it, but yeah, sure, he's not happy about it. He wants a piece that's going to help them win now. And I think that's similar to the way Jordan was. Jordan's like, hey, sure, Jordan's like, we're a damn good team in the 90s. Like, well, look at the team we have here. Like, we're one of the best teams, if not the best team in NBA history. We should be always looking to add and continue this run as long as we possibly can. When Krause was kind of more in the ideology of, you know what, no good things last forever. We got to shut this off at one point. And I think that's where it was, the relationship soured from that point. I mean, it soured before that, but like, I think that's when the relationship really, really, really soured, when it was more towards, Krause was stopped really going towards winning and more thinking about the future. And there were things before that, like I said, but that was a big one. And like I kind of mentioned too before, Krause is really his only, well, not my opinion only, but like his big screw up was the 98 season before the season, just announcing that. Because if you don't announce that, hey, they could go for 7th, get the gang back for one more year. You never know. Would they have won? Who knows? Even Jordan touched on it. They don't know if they would have won, but the opportunity to get that shot, he just blew it. Like, Krause just destroyed that. And I think that is just such a huge mark on him, but not, he's still a great GM, but that's the big mark on him where I think Jordan really, really won't let that go. I think that's the biggest one for him, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I think that's very true. I think basically that 98 season basically kind of embodies exactly what Krause, his mentality, the way he thought, the way he acted, all came out through that decision to say, hey, look, Phil, even if you go 82-0, you're still gone after this. Like, that's basically saying, look, I run this. Exactly. I run this team. Like, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. What you said, I run this team. What I say goes. Like, that's which is.
Right. Exactly. But here's one thing I want to push back on a little bit. At the end of the documentary, Mike says basically, look, I could have won, 7 championships, 8 championships. We could have brought him back. And, Reinsdorf at the end, he was the one that basically says, hey, look, like, we didn't want to bring everybody back because Jordan's getting old, Pippen's getting old, Rodman's getting old. It was a business decision, exactly. And basically, what Mike is saying is like, oh, if all those guys come back on a 1-year deal, like, we're gonna win a 7th championship. Well, there's a problem with that, and that's Pippen. Dude, Pippen was on, and we'll get to Pippen in a second here, but he was on that 7-year, $18 million deal, and this was the final year of his deal. You think Pippen's coming back on a 1-year deal and not going to go and get the bag like he did in Portland? No, absolutely not. He's going to go get that money. And if Pippen's not coming back, Jordan's not coming back. If Jordan's not coming back, neither is Phil. And then all the dominoes fall based off the fact that I don't believe that Pippen would be willing to take a 1-year deal to come back after he just got screwed for 7 years and to come back and do it again for 1 year. I just don't think he would.
You're right.
I don't think he would. Actually, before we get into Pippen, I want to talk about Phil Jackson, because Phil Jackson to me had like a crazy underrated job to do here. And I think that kind of, the Zen master effect kind of goes over heads too.
Well, Zen, that's what caught this. There are so many different personalities, and he was just the guy for it. Like, he knew how to handle and the Zen, like the Buddhist, like everything to ideologies, like everything with that just comes back huge. And his like Native American ideologies as well too. There was in like handling Rodman. He just knew what worked. He just knew how to handle each person and how it would make it gel. And like you said, on the court, we all know about him with his we all know about Phil Jackson, but off the court, like you said, he had a hell of a job and he did it well.
Yeah. Like, and you alluded to it there. Look, he has to manage Michael Jordan's tyrant attitude. He's got to manage Pippen's passive-aggressive anger with Krause and his contract. He's got to he's got to manage Rodman's needs, and we're going to get to Rodman's needs very soon. Don't worry. And he's got to manage the rest of the team expectations. Like the team is like watching Rodman do all this crazy like stuff. They're watching Pippen go off. They're watching Jordan like basically rip them to shreds verbally, and in Steve Kerr's face physically. And Phil Jackson basically has to be like, no, it's all right. Trust me. Everything's okay here.
Exactly,
it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Like, are you kidding me? Like if I'm a role player on the team, what am I thinking?
Yeah, even like with I know we'll talk about Rodman after. Like, in so many ways, that guy's so inspirational. Like that guy absolutely. Is like.
Oh, we're gonna get to his inspiration. Trust me.
He's just like. But anyway, but with Rodman, like, even Jordan touched on it. Like, yeah, Dennis needs a vacation. It's like, he needs a vacation. Like, I need a vacation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think the other players were thinking when, like, oh, we're going to give Dennis a little vacation? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, I don't know. That guy's awesome. We'll touch on him later.
Totally. And, yeah, I just wanted to touch on Phil Jackson there because I think he had an underrated job to do. And, he did it and then did it again with the Lakers, later in his career, right? 11 championships. Like, he's got a book out, 11 rings or something like that. I'm kind of interested to read that now that I see what he had to deal with. And I'm kind of leaning towards going to buy that book at Kohl's or get it off Amazon or something. But I'm interested in that. Okay, before we get to Rodman, I want to talk about Pippen. Because Pippen is, like, interesting in this doc to me, too. Pippen, like, he's an interesting character. To me, he's got a part of himself that's very stubborn.
Yeah, he's a roller coaster he's like I'm not character, he's a real person, but like he's kind of like a roller coaster personality in the doc. Like they make him like high low, like you love him, you hate him, you love him, you hate him. Like he was a great, like I've heard some people say Scottie Pippen was the greatest teammate they ever had. And then I've heard some people say like, well,
Jordan was one of those people.
Exactly. A lot of people on the Bulls team said Scottie Pippen was a phenomenal teammate. But then, like when he walks out on them and like some of the antics that he did,
that's what I mean.
You get the highs and the lows with Scottie.
That's what I mean. Like, and that was something I didn't expect going into this. Like waiting in the 90, I think it was the 97 season, 97, 98 season where he didn't get the surgery in the summer because he didn't want to mess up his summer. So he got it during the season. Yo, what? That is crazy.
That's bad.
Insane. And then the other one that was insane to me is at the end of that game when Phil Jackson drew up to play for Kukoc. And Pippen was pissed about it.
Yeah.
So he didn't go into the game.
He didn't go into the game.
Didn't go into the game. And then afterwards he says, I would do it again.
I know.
I was like, whoa.
At least he's honest though. Like I respect that. You know how much bullshit.
Honest to a fault, maybe though. Honest to a fault.
Yeah.
But like at the beginning, like we're like, 7 years, 18 million. Like that's insane. Like how he's getting screwed for these last 7 years by the end of it, you're like, oh, well, he's not going to the games. Like he's delaying his foot surgery. Like, are we really feeling that bad for him? So you're right. I think you said it right there. He was a roller coaster character in this, and by the end of it, obviously I don't feel bad for Rodman whatsoever. First of all, he made more money than Michael Jordan throughout his whole career.
Pippen, you mean? Pippen?
Or sorry, Pippen. Sorry, did I say Rodman? My bad. Pippen. Yeah, I don't feel bad for Pippen at all. Obviously, he delayed his foot surgery, refused to go into games. He asked for a trade and obviously never got one. But I mean, he made more money than Jordan throughout his whole career. He got his 6 rings
from basketball. Let's say from basketball.
Okay,
obviously, endorsements and other stuff. Jordan.
Oh yes, yeah, sorry. That's a good point. That's actually a good point that you bring up. But yeah, from basketball, he made more money. Obviously, Jordan's billionaire. That guy's ridiculous. But yeah, so all in all, I don't feel bad for Rodman. But I thought he was just an interesting character. He was an interesting character that I thought he was going to have more of a positive light shine on him, and no doubt he did. But there were some negative points too that maybe stuck out to me just a little bit more than the positive. But I did learn more about how good about how good Pippen was as a player on the court, because that's something I learned more about that I actually didn't know. Like I didn't know Pippen. Like a lot of times they referenced Pippen as like a top 3 player in the league. I didn't know he was that good.
That's up for debate. I mean, that's like my dad was a big basketball fan in that time too, so I've heard him talk about them. Like I watched the whole stock with him, and he was telling me his opinions. Like he always, in his opinion, thought Scottie Pippen was a great player, never top 3 in the league ever.
Interesting. Okay.
And he said there was always something about Scottie that like kind of rubbed him the wrong way too. So maybe he kind of got the downward of the roller coaster that we saw with Scottie Pippen, So like he gained some respect for him after the doc, but at the same time, he's like, come on, like some of the things this guy did. So, but that's just Scottie Pippen, for example. I know. And I love the relationship between Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. That's just an awesome side.
I agree. I think that's pretty. I
relationship.
think that's pretty cool too. All right, let's talk some Rodman, man. That guy was one of the most entertaining people in this series. Okay, so
actually, before we go, Rodman, can I just say one thing? Because it's going to take absolute max 1 minute.
Okay, go fire away.
My favorite part, other than what's his face, Wozniak's Jordan Shrug, was how Skip Bayless, the man who would sell his family to Colombian drug lords to be friends with Michael Jordan, they didn't interview this guy once. He was a beat writer for the Bulls. Not for the Bulls, but covering the Bulls. And they didn't interview him once. This guy will this will do anything to support Michael Jordan over LeBron James, those debates. And they didn't even interview him. I love it.
I think that's funny too, actually. I saw that on Twitter and I was like, oh yeah, what about Skip? What about Skip?
Favorite part, how Skip wasn't invited. Or maybe they interviewed him and he thought he was going to be a big part of it and he was all excited and they cut him. That would be even better.
Oh man. But, you're right. That is pretty funny.
Anyway, that's just the point I wanted to bring up.
No,
Skip Bayless.
It's good. I'm glad you did. I'm definitely glad you did. All right, Rodman, man. Rodman, what do you say about this guy? Like, as part of the Pistons as to start, he was part of the Pistons team that was beating Jordan. That was, part of the guys physically beating him up. And somehow he makes it over to the Bulls. And Jordan has, a lot of respect for Rodman, unlike he had for guys like, Dumars and Isaiah Thomas. Like, he somehow has, respect for Rodman. And I think it's because Rodman really I don't think Rodman conflicted with what Jordan was trying to do. Like, Isaiah, he's got the ball in his hands, right? He's scoring. He's that guy. Dumar is like, big time defender. He provides some secondary scoring, might get in the way of, Pippen or even Jordan. But Rodman's skill set is perfectly fitted for what that team needed. And I think 100%. Jordan recognizes that while he was with his time with the Pistons.
No doubt about it. Yeah, exactly. When you played against him, when you play against Dennis Rodman, you see the kind of player he is, especially because a lot of times Dennis Rodman is going to cover the best player on the other team. So Michael Jordan saw, whether it's on switches or whether it's on just him covering Michael Jordan, he saw Dennis Rodman. So he knows this guy. He digs, he rebounds, he does the little things that make you a championship team. And that's what the Bulls lacked. And it's perfect. It was the great dish. That's why let him do his antics. Whatever makes Rodman be Rodman, just let it happen. I mean, going to the wrestling during the NBA Finals, I mean, I
want to talk about that, but let's talk about the Vegas vacation first.
Okay, the Vegas vacation is incredible. That is amazing. I love it because Jordan's reaction is the best. Just like, he needs a vacation. I need a vacation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obvious. Like, it's so funny. I love that one. But I'm curious. When he was in Vegas, was he wearing pajama pants as well? I just love how this guy's always wearing pajama pants, man. That was one of my favorite things I took from this. I can relate to him.
I don't think he was. I think Rodman actually low-key had a little drip to him. I think Rodman was kind of dripping over there in Vegas.
Hell yeah. Obviously he wore the pajama pants a lot, but like when he wasn't wearing the pajama pants, that guy had drip, man. That guy was like, he was swagging out, He was looking good.
That's what I mean. He was styling a little bit. Yeah. And so, he goes to Vegas. He goes for his 40-hour vacation. They asked Mike, he's doing all this stuff, drinking, partying with, Carmen Electra and all this stuff. They asked Mike, did he come back in 48 hours? Nope. No, he did not. So Jordan has to go and roam the streets of Vegas to go and find Dennis Rodman. He finds him, and then Carmen Electra basically tells a story where she's in the hotel room, with Dennis Rodman. We can guess what they were doing, but she hides. She hides because she didn't want to see Michael Jordan. Jordan basically drags Rodman out of the hotel. Yeah. He shows up at practice in the aforementioned pajama pants. And then he tells the story about how they got to get Rodman back into shape, right? He's been doing nothing for 3 days.
Well, he's been doing a lot, but not
not the right kind of stuff. You're right, not the right kind of stamina. And so they put him through this drill where at the back of the they're running around like a track, and I think it's after Jackson blows the whistle, the guy at the back has to get to the front with everybody like sprinting and running, right?
And he
and Rodman just
him.
beats everybody down the floor. So you could see like he would go out and do all this party stuff, but it didn't affect him at all. Like it did not even have any effect. He was ready to go when he needed to be on the court in game shape, ready to play and help his team. He was ready to go.
He had like the body of like a super athletic college athlete. Like this guy can just get hammered the night before and then go out the next day and just put up 30 and 10. You know what I mean? Just it doesn't matter. That guy, alcohol did nothing to him. He was like that type of thing. He was just Dennis Rodman. There was no player like him, and there'll never be a player like him ever again, I don't think.
Yeah, I know. It's insane. And then, he leaves after game 3 of the finals, and I'm just going to go wrestle with Hulk Hogan.
That one was kind of bad in my opinion. That one, like the Vegas one, at least they talked it out. That one was like, that one was wild in my opinion. That one, come on. You know, that one shouldn't happen. He doesn't show up at practice, and then he's wrestling with Hulk Hogan. Imagine finding that. Imagine today with social media.
Oh, I was literally about to say that. So much of the stuff in this documentary would go absolutely crazy. What was it after in the Eastern Conference Finals, after the Bulls went down 2-0 to the Knicks, Jordan went out gambling the night after, like until like super late. And then the media was reaming him up about it. And then in game 3, he comes out and just torches the Knicks, like just absolutely blows them out of the water. Like stuff like that. Like the Rodman antics, some of the stuff Jordan was doing, the Pippen not going into the game. Like all of this stuff would be just they'd blow this stuff way out of proportion. Like if you told them these stories about a team, there's no way without attaching names to the stories that you would guess that this team is the biggest dynasty of all time and three-peated twice. Like you'd never guess that.
No.
And so, Rodman was, just quite a character. He really helped this team tremendously. And Jordan clearly had respect for him. That was very clear. And, and Rodman had a lot of respect too for Jordan, I would say. There was that time where I think early in the doc where they were talking about, how Rodman just like wasn't playing his best. Scottie Pippen, came back, from injury or something he had going on, and Rodman slotted back into that third spot after he had kind of bumped up into the second best player or whatever, I guess if you want to call it, for the Bulls. Yes, sure. And he didn't play as well, and he had bad games. And Jordan, and he came to Jordan's door, knocking on his door, and asked Jordan, "Hey, do you got an extra cigar?" And that was his way of basically saying, "Look, I messed up. I know I got to play better." And so the respect was there. The accountability for Rodman on the court was there, despite all this antics. And like, I think I just don't want to get that confused. That despite all this like craziness, like Rodman held himself accountable on the court, and at the end of the day, like that's what matters.
Exactly, and I think. Obviously, skipping practice is not one of those things that Jordan would like. He wants winning more than anything. But like I feel like when it comes to with this team, when Mike picked up on the guys who want to win, like Steve Kerr, like all these little things, he picked up on these guys, and that's why he trusted you. Whether he picked up on it in-game action, whether it was something off the court, or whether he saw you in practice, just staying after, working on your game, or being the first one there to work on your game. Mike picked up on these little things, and
agreed.
Like he had that one quote, like once you join the team, you live by a certain standard that I played the game, and I wasn't going to take any less. Mm-hmm. Like that was just it. Rodman, sure, he didn't live to that standard in practice per se, but in the game, he gave it every ounce of what he had, and I think Mike saw that. So that was one of the things where, hey, winning is the most important thing. Winning at all costs, and the way he is, when he's at his peak, he helps us get to that point. So that's why it didn't matter.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the last thing I want to end on with Rodman is, Rodman low-key, he's pretty smart. He's pretty smart. Like there was that one portion of the doc where he's bringing in guys to miss shots so he can judge the angles of how it bounces off the rim so he could be a better rebounder. Like that's that kind of stuff. Like it just kind of goes
unnoticed. Just a role player.
Like,
the small things that win you championships.
You got to work on that stuff, right? Like that's those little minute details that going to make you better, than the guy next to you. And Rodman was willing to put in that work. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Oh, where do we want to go? Where do we want to go next?
I want to say here. Let's go I want to go what the Bulls' reign meant to the growth of the NBA.
Okay. Fire away. I like that.
Okay. So, like, basketball is obviously an international sport, huge in Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, North America, everywhere. It's big everywhere. But Michael Jordan really, really put not only just the NBA and professional basketball in America on the map, but American and NBA basketball culture on the map. And that is just something that has spread since, like basketball culture, NBA culture. Everybody knows, well, not everybody, but a lot of sports people know about NBA culture. And I think that really started with Jordan and those Bulls. Like, you look at Dirk, for example. Dirk in Germany became a fan of the NBA through the Jordan Bulls. That's an example right there of the NBA spreading internationally. And really, no, I'm not going to say that's what got him into basketball. The guy's 7 foot tall. Like, I'm sure his athleticism and his height got him into basketball, but obviously the Jordan Bulls helped there. And I believe there was one clip where they said that they were in the Jordan's time around there, the NBA was in 80 something countries, and now it's in over 200. So, and I think the Jordan Bulls were the big part of that. That's the reason.
I remember Stern said that. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. Stern said it. I couldn't remember who said it, but that was big thing to me, because the NBA, it was a big league in the 80s, 90s. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
that Jordan Bulls, it really made them internationally huge, and now the NBA is just massive overseas. Like, right. Basketball, not just basketball, but the NBA is huge overseas.
Absolutely, and I think, so I mentioned in this documentary, but the NBA, back in, I think it was like the 70s or like early 80s, was like kind of in like in a bad place before the Magic and Bird rivalry came to be, that kind of reignited the league.
Yeah.
And then you're right, Jordan just took that and put it on just another level. And now we are where we are today, based on, the elevation of the game, from Mike, and then taking it forward, from guys like LeBron and Kobe, and now, even further, Steph Curry and Harden and all these guys, KD, Giannis. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you know what I mean? Like, these guys are just
the stars.
Yeah, the stars. They're just taking the basically the baseline that guys like, Bird, Magic, and Jordan built, and they're moving it forward. And, Jordan was a big cinder block in building, this, conglomerate here that is the NBA. I totally agree with you there. I couldn't agree more. I want to just talk about some other little things. Here's one thing I want to talk about, okay? The flu game, okay? There's a couple things about the flu game, all right? People just seem to think, now, obviously, we learned that it's food poisoning. It's not the flu. I actually knew that before going into the doc, that it was food poisoning and not the flu. Yeah. Tim Grover, his trainer, tells a story about, the 5 guys showing up at the door with the pizza.
That's just sus right there, though. 5 dudes right. Showing up with the pizza.
Right. And he says that. He's like, I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
And some people are like, oh, like the Utah pizza place poisoned his pizza. And we can dive into the theory about, does the pizza place, like people are saying, like, oh, how do they know that Jordan was staying there? Well, a lot of the same teams stay at the same hotels.
Yeah, no,
and there's a pattern that I'm sure, like, other teams have ordered pizza from this place before, and
they didn't poison the pizza. I'm gonna go on. I don't think they poisoned the pizza. They even talked to the pizza maker, and he seemed like an honest fellow.
But that's
so I'm going to take his word for it.
And people, but here's my point is that, and I agree with you. I don't think anybody poisoned the pizza. But people are just going to say, okay, if no one poisoned his food or his pizza, then there's no way it could have been food poisoning. Well, isn't it possible that he just had a bad pizza and that no one intended to poison him? Like, can't those things just be separate entities, that just because the guy didn't poison the pizza, it doesn't mean he couldn't have gotten it, food poisoning from it. Just because he didn't do it intentionally doesn't mean he couldn't have done it by accident. Like,
could have been bad cheese. Like, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? Like, could have been anything. That was I will say that was the only part of the documentary I could personally relate to.
Because you got celiac. That's right.
No, one man eating the whole pizza.
Oh.
I couldn't relate to any other part of this documentary. Like, celiac. I mean, if that pizza had gluten, I was done. I was done. It was the 90s too, so there was definitely no gluten free. I would have been done for.
Oh man, that's hella funny. I didn't think that answer was coming. What else? The traveling cocaine circus. This is another pro Mike thing. Like they mentioned the traveling cocaine circus, and Mike's like, oh, I got to get out as a rookie. He's like, oh, I got to get out of here. Like I'm gonna get caught with the cocaine. And they
Forgot
show
about
him
that part,
and they
actually.
show him back in his hotel, like folding his clothes with like a glass of orange juice. You're telling me Mike didn't take part in this stuff?
Yeah,
You're telling me Mike is looking like a friggin' first year college kid folding his
exactly.
laundry while his teammates are doing coke and weed and drinking mad like scotch and all this stuff. And he's folding his clothes in his room with orange juice. No, hell no.
It's Jordan's perspective.
I didn't buy that
like
for
Rachel
a second.
Nichols said, this
I
is
didn't
Jordan's
buy that for
perspective.
a second.
Yeah,
okay,
no,
I had to mention that because I didn't buy that for a second. That is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
What else? I also thought it was interesting from Jordan's perspective that he said that outside of the Pistons, that the Pacers gave him the toughest time, and specifically Reggie Miller gave him the toughest time in the Eastern Conference throughout all his years. More than the Knicks, more than all those Eastern Conference teams, other than the Pistons, obviously. Thought that was pretty interesting. They did. The Pacers were the only team other than the Knicks to take him to Game 7. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep.
What else? I thought it was funny after they beat the Pacers, that scene where Jordan and Bird are talking and they're just like kind of buddy, and then Jordan like kind of drops low key this line where he's like, hey, now you got time to work on your golf swing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my goodness, after everything you've been through the Celtics days and all this stuff, Jordan had that one in the holster.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my goodness, he was waiting for that, and I couldn't just help but just go, ooh, after I heard that on TV. So
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here now, but dude, Scott Burrell played one season for the Bulls. He got more screen time than a man should have gotten for one season. Like Jordan must love Scott Burrell.
I don't know, man.
Love the guy.
Scott Burrell was terrible. Scott Burrell was bad though, man. Like in comparison to the rest of the team. Yeah, that thing I sent you. -17. The guy played 10 minutes. -17.
And that scene too, where he's posting up Jordan, and Jordan is like not even trying on defense until he makes a move and absolutely swats him in practice. Like, oh my God. And then like he's like talking about how, Scott Burrell is just like this player and this like alcoholic. Like he's just unloading on Scott Burrell. Like
Scott Burrell didn't contribute to the winning.
And he played one season. Like we didn't hear anything about Horace Grant. He was integral to that three-peat.
I talked to Horace.
Yeah, no, they talked to him. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't mention that he was like 6th man of the year quality type good. Yeah. Like that's what I've like.
Horace Grant was a great player.
He was a great player.
Yeah.
He was a great player. They really did mention him at all. They mentioned him, but like not in the context that they should have. At least one guy we didn't talk about, Steve Kerr.
I was going to mention Steve Kerr before this was done for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, as a player, I knew about him, but like I didn't know. Can you hear me? Sorry, did I cut up there? Or?
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, no, as a player, I knew a little bit about him, not a ton. But that guy, the work he puts in. I knew actually a funny story just because I'm a Gonzaga Bulldogs fan. He had no scholarship offers really. And at the time, Gonzaga wanted to give him a scholarship offer. So they brought him up. He was keen on it. He's like, yeah, I don't have a scholarship offer. I'm going to go check out, even though Gonzaga is a no-name school at the time. And he goes up there and he's playing. And then, so he starts scrimmaging with a bunch of guys. And he's like, and I'm just getting busted all game by this scrawny white dude. And then all of a sudden they revoked the scholarship. Not even an offer anymore. It was John Stockton. It's just like great Steve Kerr story. But yeah, I love Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr, as a player, he knew he worked hard. He got everything out of what he had. And that's one of the things Jordan picked up on. Hey, I can trust this guy. He works, and that's one of the things that made him trust him. But yeah, you can go on about Steve Kerr. Off the court, like I knew about Steve Kerr. He's a great person, what he stands for, everything like that. But on the court, I learned a lot about him. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And he mentions that after Mike punched him in the face, he had to call him and like apologize, all this stuff, and he felt that brought him closer. That he could trust. Sure. He could trust him more now for whatever reason. I guess
why was Phil calling those ticky-tack fouls though, and it made Jordan actually just foul him big time? Because that was the story. He was
that
calling
was it.
ticky-tack fouls, and then Jordan fouls him. He's like, that's a foul. And then Steve Kerr came up and punched Jordan in the chest, and then Jordan clocked him in the eye.
Yeah, I think that's the story. Yeah.
Why was he calling ticky-tacks? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. That's what you're gonna have to take up with Phil. I have no idea. But yeah, no, and it's interesting because if Phil, or sorry, not Phil, Steve Kerr he mentioned this. He tries to model his game after John Paxson.
Bill Paxson.
Huh?
Bill Paxson, right?
No, John Paxson.
Oh yeah, Bill Carr. My bad.
Bill Cartwright, John Paxson. Yeah.
I always
But yeah, he tries to model after John Paxson, and John Paxson has hit, that big shot that got kicked out from Horace Grant. We saw that, and I think it was Game 6 to end the series. Who was that against? I don't remember now. Now it's just blanking in my mind. I think it was. It was in the first three-peat. I think it was against the Blazers.
Yeah, it was in the first three-peat. It would have been.
I don't know if it was the Blazers. I think. Oh no, it was the Suns. It was the Suns. I think I remember.
It was the Suns. Yeah.
Yeah. So he hits it against the Suns, and Steve Kerr then hits a very similar shot to close out the Knicks, I believe, in the Eastern Conference Finals. And this wasn't.
No, NBA Finals was Steve Kerr.
Yeah, NBA Finals was Steve Kerr. See, that's why so much stuff happens. I can't even remember it all. And then anyway, he hits a big shot, and it's leading up to the speech at the parade.
Exactly,
the speech at the parade where Steve Kerr was basically like, so here's the real story, because I think we would just know what he called in the huddle. He's like, they drew it up for me. They said, Mike really doesn't feel like taking that shot. He doesn't feel comfortable in those situations. And I said, okay, Phil, I guess I'm going to have to bail out Mike again. That was so funny. That was so funny. I really enjoyed that quite a bit.
That was awesome.
And to this day, Steve Kerr still holds the highest three-point percentage in NBA history at 45% ahead of Steph Curry. So,
and he's the only player to win 4 straight, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. And he's done it
he won with the Spurs right after.
Yeah, that's right. And with the Warriors now, too, as a coach. So this guy, he just gets basketball in a lot of different senses. So,
for sure.
I thought it was at least keen to, mention Steve Kerr in this.
Definitely.
What else? I think we hit on so much of it here. The
only thing I can really think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, so the only thing I can really think of going forward, we could touch a little bit more on Isaiah Thomas, and I was gonna say the Bulls' run meant to the history of the game too. Like if you look at the history of the game, look how many legendary teams were dismantled without winning a ring. Just to name a few. I'm not saying these players never won a ring because Clyde Drexler won a ring, but Clyde Drexler's Trailblazers got
Houston, they never mentioned Houston won 2 straight when Jordan retired. That bothered me. That bothered me. That bothered me because a lot of people said if Houston didn't lose to, I think it was, what was it, the Jazz that hit that shot?
Yep.
I think it was Stockton, right? It was Stockton that hit that 3 that sent him to the finals, if I'm not mistaken. I'm almost positive that's the case. But a lot of people said, look, the Bulls had no answer for Olajuwon. I've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
No, the Bulls did not have an answer for Hakeem Olajuwon. And right off the bat, I'm thinking, well, Rodman. Wouldn't Rodman be the guy that take Olajuwon? But apparently, maybe not,
No, Hakeem, Rodman wasn't big enough. But, I mean, he'd still fight. But, I know, that's my opinion. Rodman just flat out just didn't have the size. But, that's a good point, too. They should have mentioned more about Houston. But, what I was saying, Clyde Drexler's Trailblazers didn't get a ring. Patrick Ewing's Knicks didn't get a ring. Reggie Miller's Pacers didn't get a ring. Karl Malone and John Stockton's Jazz didn't get a ring. Gary Payton's Sonics didn't get a ring. Charles Barkley's Suns didn't get a ring. These are legendary teams, and a lot of these players ended up retiring without a ring. These are legendary teams that went out without a ring because of Jordan's Bulls. So I think the history of the game was just altered so much by Jordan too.
Sure, for sure. And I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but Ewing, he got beat 4 times by
Ewing's
Jordan.
Next. Yeah,
Ewing and Reggie Miller. You said Reggie Miller, right?
Yeah, Reggie Miller, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Gary Payton, Charles Barkley, Clyde Drexler.
Yeah, all those guys.
Drexler won, but Drexler with the Blazers never won.
Yeah.
Against Jordan.
Yeah, totally. No, you're right. He denied a lot of good teams of some dubs and some chips, and that happens today too, right? A lot of the greatest players have done that in today's game, as well. You could say that about LeBron. How many times has LeBron denied guys of chips? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
My goodness, it's getting crazy now with all the teams he's blown out in the Eastern Conference. That definitely happens, and obviously Jordan is no different. Let's talk. Another thing that they didn't talk about with Jordan, which makes this a pro Jordan doc, is the fact that actually they touched on it a bit. In Game 6 in 1998, which was on last night, and I watched the whole thing, Jordan shot like crap in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
He was
did, yeah.
terrible
Did
in
not
the
touch
fourth
upon
quarter.
that at all.
They did show a bunch of shots where
They were like,
shooting
he
short.
was gassed.
Yeah,
Jordan
he was gassed,
just had
right.
nothing left in the tank. It's like maybe the guy just got cold. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And that's the thing. Like, and that's what this documentary is king of, right? It's like when Jordan wasn't on, it's he was gassed. His legs were done. He was in baseball shape and not basketball shape. And then when he's crushing them, it's like, oh my god, he just completely
Black
destroyed
Jesus,
him.
like,
Like Black Jesus. Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like it's just
God disguised as Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
like,
God. Yeah, exactly. That was quite a quote from Larry Bird. But yeah, that's a bunch of that stuff. But
I can't think of Larry Bird and not laugh though. There's no human being that looks more like his name than Larry Bird.
You mentioned that to me.
Oh my god, I just can't get over it. He looks like a big bird, and he looks like a Larry. He's Larry Bird.
He's such a Larry Bird. I totally agree. It's actually crazy.
What other name could he be? He's nothing. He's Larry Bird.
Yeah.
It's.
And what else did I say? And when Jordan is laughing at the iPad, when Gary Payton said, "Oh, I made him work after game 3," and like the stats show, like, look, Payton did a pretty good job on Jordan. Like they won
100%.
They won two more games where Jordan didn't shoot well, so they took it to 6 games.
What I didn't get that. I remember watching it with my brother and my dad. And my brother was just kind of, when Jordan was laughing, my brother just asked me, he's like, "Why is he laughing?" He's like, Payton did an unreal job on him. He clamps. Like, he is clamps. He clamped him down. Like,
he was the defensive player of the year.
Exactly. Of course he made a difference. If they had him on him from the start, of course the series would have been different.
And also, George Karl waited like 3-4 games to put the defensive player of the year on Michael Jordan. He's like, I'm gonna go down 3-0, and then I'm gonna decide, okay, I'll put the defensive player of the year on the best player on the planet. Like, why don't you? Yeah. And he said, like, oh yeah, I gotta save you for offense. Like, I need you to score. Like, ridiculous. You're not gonna outscore Mike if you're not guarding him. Like, it's like you're not gonna have a chance.
No. Exactly. It's the stupidest thing. That
drove me nuts when I saw that. I was like,
they
needed 4 games to put Gary Payton on Michael Jordan and then won 2 consecutive, which shows that you should have done that strategy from the. Oh, it just drove me nuts. It just drove me nuts.
I'm not gonna say he's a bad coach. He wasn't a bad coach, but that series he coached so poorly. Like, that was just terrible. You never, when a guy matches up, not only is Gary Payton Defensive Player of the Year, he matches up well against Michael Jordan. It's not like Gary Payton had to cover Hakeem Olajuwon.
Exactly.
He covering a guy he matched up against. Like, what? I don't understand the logic. Like, I know what he said his logic was, but that's just ridiculous logic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was completely ridiculous, and I'm flabbergasted to this day that was the case. I don't get it at all. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We touched on a lot of stuff here.
For sure.
Yeah, the whole Byron Russell thing, him talking trash when he was retired was pretty funny. We talked about gambling. Yeah, I think we got pretty much everything. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on a little bit more that maybe we didn't get to? Maybe a little Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons versus the Bulls. You wanted to do that? Go ahead on that.
We could talk a little bit about Isaiah Thomas, just his relationship with Jordan a little. And another thing, if you wanted to, we could touch on is just Jordan as a businessman. Like, that guy was just.
Yeah, the sneaker stuff, though, maybe we can touch on a little bit. Yeah, we'll go quickly on the sneaker stuff. Like, there was that episode where, he hated Nike. He didn't want to go to Nike. He wanted to go to Adidas badly.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, at the time, I don't blame him either. Like,
I don't blame him now. Adidas is the best, man.
Oh, I'll fight you on that to death. But but how does Adidas fumble the bag that badly? Like, the guy, like, that's tough, man. That is rough. And then
stripes over checks just for, in general, basketball shoes, not stripes over checks.
Okay, fair enough.
Continue.
But yeah, they fumbled the bag on that one, and After that episode, I was, in between commercials, I went back to like just take a look at some of like the retros that I have of like the OG colorways, like the Concords and stuff. I was like, damn. I was like, I'm just like looking up, looking down at the shoe. Like, there's some history behind this. I didn't
Yeah,
even know. Like,
for sure.
it's really crazy. Uh, it was kind of a nice little touch to the episode, because I think that's kind of understated about Jordan, is the legacy that he's left. There's a lot of players that have retired that have won a lot of rings with a lot of Hall of Fames, a lot of MVPs, all that sort of stuff. None of them have left the legacy that Jordan have, and a lot of it is left through the sneakers that he has. I think that's like, I'm glad they touched on the sneaker stuff, because that's a lot of people that don't like basketball that much, that are watching this documentary just out of the curiosity, are going to learn like, hey, like all this is what goes into the shoe that you line up on Saturdays, or that you get up at 10 a.m. to go and get. Like, and I'm glad that they touched on, the process of how that came to be through the shoes and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. We don't have to really talk much more about that, other than the fact that I think Adidas fumbled the bag big time.
One thing I'll also touch on just really quickly was the reason I think he was the ultimate business person was just because, well, it helped not having social media, but like, he wasn't even the slightest bit political. Like, other than the statement, Republicans buy sneakers.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Like, other than that statement, he wasn't really political.
No,
so
not at all.
He could take any endorsement. Like, because it's not like, oh, I don't like Michael Jordan, he supports this. I don't like Michael Jordan, he supports this. He's just Michael Jordan. Like, we didn't know what he supported. He just went out there, he endorsed the product, and he played basketball. And obviously he did things in his outside life, like gambling and stuff like that too. But I mean, that's why he was the ultimate endorsement. Like, you could just
it's a good point, Nick. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. He never really picked sides, and I'm sure that the endorsements that he did lose because he didn't stand up for certain causes, like what was that black Democrat that ran in that certain district. I think it was Illinois. I don't even remember. I'm not an American. I don't know.
It was Gant.
And he didn't support him, and basically by not supporting him, that was basically, without doing nothing, is basically saying you support the opposition.
Some people have that mentality, yes, for sure.
Right, and that's my point, right? Is that like but if we contrast this to what you're talking about by taking a side, he probably lost less by doing nothing than he would have by taking an actual side.
I think, in my opinion, like I love LeBron James. I love what he stands for. I love LeBron James, but he's not as easy as a person to have an endorsement with as Michael Jordan was in his prime, in my opinion. Because
unless you're Nike.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a lot of stuff Michael Jordan, in my opinion, he's correct. But there's a lot of things that LeBron James stands up for that, like, some people might disagree or think, like, oh, that's not your place. You know what I mean? Right. A lot of people, especially, I don't know if it's people that are in their like late 50s, early 60s, I don't know what it is. They just have that mentality of, not all of them, but some of them, that what makes an athlete like superior, like, type thing, why they have to speak on social issues, what makes their opinion more valid, like, you know what I mean? So, like,
the shut up and dribble mentality, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%, which I don't agree with, but
no, me either.
Michael Jordan kind of had it, you know what I mean? Like, other than the one statement about Gant and the Republicans buy sneakers too, he was an easy guy to endorse. Everyone loved Michael Jordan. He didn't take sides on issues. So, like you said, okay, by saying Republicans buy sneakers too, some Democrats might view that as, oh, he's an anti-Democrat. He's anti I don't know. Like, he's anti certain things that they stood for. But that's not the case. Like, and really, that's not the case. That's just their interpretation of it. Realistically, he was the easiest guy to endorse.
Yeah, totally. I'm totally with you, and that's a good point, that he was an easy endorser, because again, he wasn't very vocal about what he stood for, if he stood for anything really. And even to this day, some people have criticized Mike for being a little too quiet on black issues and stuff like that, when a lot of his shoe sales are from predominantly African Americans who invest in Jordans and love Jays, and I'm Caucasian white male. I like them too. Don't get me wrong. I'm all in that stuff. I love it. Yeah. But a lot of people are, kind of critical of Mike for, not saying anything. And by not saying anything, they say is saying a lot. So I think that pressure has mounted on him over the years. But back in the day, in the 90s, I agree that I think by not saying anything, it actually made him a lot easier to work with, because, Mike's not going to be controversial. He's not going to say much. He doesn't do that stuff.
No, exactly.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. All right, let's end this off by talking about I would say Mike's biggest challenge of his career, which was the Pistons. Um, let's face it, the stuff that really stands out is, Pistons beat him up. They beat him up physically. He went in there and basically had to have that mentality like, look, like, I don't know. I tweeted this when I think I was watching the doc. Like, I don't know how I could play basketball. Like, when I would go into a game and just basically think like, oh, this could be the last game I play for like 6 months. Because
Yeah.
they're I'm gonna go to the hole and I'm just gonna get whacked. And then like that's the Jordan rules, right? Is like you don't let him get baseline.
Yeah.
You force him to the elbows or wherever and bring help. And then when he drives to the rim, you make
Wow.
sure that he feels it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's tough. That is
Yeah.
so hard to play against. And like, that nobody else had ever. I don't think anybody else had ever faced that type of treatment as an individual. When playing up to that point where you're getting physically beaten up. Like,
To my knowledge, nobody. Yeah, no, there's no other way to put it. They just abused Michael Jordan.
Twice
yeah,
in 2
exactly.
series.
Yeah, so that I mean, he was the type of guy that stuff motivated him, but obviously, your body can only take so much. That's just human.
For sure. I think when he faced the Celtics earlier in his career, they didn't beat him up. He just got beat by Larry Bird, Danny Ainge.
Good team.
Who else was it? Coach of the Mavericks, Rick Carlisle, who had that face. And he was kind of like when he dropped 63 or whatever against the Celtics. Like, they just got beat that time by a better team. They didn't have Pippen at that time. Jordan was just having to carry his team, but they just got beat by a better team. And Jordan didn't feel like he needed to hit the weight room because he didn't feel like he got physically abused. He just got outskilled almost. And not to say that the Pistons didn't have skill by any means. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying they relied a lot more on their physicality. And that basically, after getting beat by the Pistons, 2 years in a row, he and the Bulls, they showed up to that damn weight room, and they were hitting that bench press, hitting those lat pull downs, hitting those overhead presses, like those compound lifts, those squats, basically just trying to get big and strong and to be able to what they refer to as I want to dish out that punishment. I'm sick of taking it. I want to dish it out. And they beat the Pistons 4-0.
Yeah.
After they came out of that weight room session and faced them again in the conference finals. And the Pistons had that attitude of, we're just going to walk off the court. We're not even going to shake your hand. And I remember they showed the Isaiah Thomas explaining why he did that to Mike, and Mike was like, I don't even care what you show me.
Exactly.
There's nothing that's going to change my mind about what I think about Isaiah Thomas. He's probably going to say, oh, I should have done it, and that was this, that, and the other. And basically Isaiah said, at the time, that's just not what you did when you lost basketball games. That's not what you did. You didn't go and shake. But they show footage of that exactly, because they show footage of Mike shaking hands with the Pistons after they beat him twice. Yeah. So, I mean, take that information and do it with it what you will. But I think the point of the matter is that once Jordan was able to withstand that physical beating, the Pistons didn't stand a chance.
No, 100%. I agree with you. Well, yeah, the Isaiah Thomas part, I'll say Isaiah Thomas was wrong, in my opinion, big time, but Jordan's got to let it go. But I guess it doesn't really matter.
Okay, well, this is the thing.
Snubbing him from the U.S. Olympic team, that's let it go. And
they touched on that. They touched on that. I think Jordan said, again, pro Jordan doc. He's obviously going to say, I didn't have anything to do with that. That wasn't my decision. It wasn't just him, right? There's a lot of people in that team that didn't get along with the Pistons because of how much, just because Jordan felt the way he did about, being bullied and all that stuff and getting beat up. A lot of these other players felt the same. But also, I forget, Pippen was on that team.
Yeah, nobody likes getting beat.
And Barkley was on that team. He didn't like it. I'm sure Larry Bird wasn't a fan of that crap either. And there's some other guys probably on that team that didn't like it. And, I don't know, again, if Jordan had anything to do with it. I'm guessing he probably did. Best player on the dream team. He's definitely got a say. It would be tough for me to think he doesn't have a say. So I got to believe that he had something to do with it. But let me ask you this before we go. Why does Jordan have to let it go? Why? Why does he have to let it go?
He doesn't have to let it go. It's just, why do you have to hold a grudge? It's the
That's
same
who he
question.
is. I think that's what, in this documentary, I think that we learned that's who he is. The guy just holds grudges his whole life. He's still got a grudge of the varsity team coach that cut him. That,
Exactly.
he holds grudges for his whole life. That's just who the guy is.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then have to let it go. Although, the normal people are letting it go, but I think we learned very quickly Jordan is not a normal guy.
Exactly, and that's what made him what he is.
Yeah, one of the greats, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I think we touched on just about everything. Nick, thanks for joining me. I think it's fair to say we both enjoyed this documentary tremendously. Sure. I think it's a good piece of excuse me. I think it's a good piece of information for those who didn't watch Jordan in his heyday like we did. I think we learned a lot, and I also think that we have a healthy amount of skepticism for the angle and the narrative that's being fed to us, while understanding this is a Jordan angle, right? Exactly. There's also probably a Bird angle and and a Barkley angle, and Karl Malone wasn't in this documentary at all whatsoever, which was kind of interesting.
Well, he's kind of a piece of crap. So I see why they wouldn't want him.
Well, Karl Malone actually was very sportsmanlake.
He was sportsmanlike, but
I get it. The 14-year-old, we're not going to get into that. I got it. Yeah. I got it. We don't have to get into that. But yeah, again, so we're seeing the Jordan angle here. I'm sure there's an angle from others, who don't have a vested interest in making Jordan's, image look good. That maybe want to speak out and speak on Jordan stories that, maybe we're in there and he just said, nope, cut it. Doesn't fit my image.
Yep, exactly.
You just don't know, right? Of what did and didn't get seen.
Jordan could have been in the editing booth the entire time. We don't know.
He definitely was. To me, he definitely was. He has final say on this whole thing, in my opinion. So, but yeah, overall, I liked it. I like that we got Jordan's angle. I think we end this with a healthy amount of skepticism, but also a newfound appreciation for what Jordan was like in the 90s and what made him so great and what made him what most consider the greatest of all time. Although I'm still not going to dive into that debate because even though I still don't know enough about everything to actually entertain that debate. I've seen LeBron, but I'm still not going to say that I've seen Jordan. I don't think that this documentary basically qualifies guys like us who didn't watch Jordan in his prime to basically say, okay, I know
a Jordan-made documentary.
I know everything I need to see. I've seen all the Jordan footage now. I've watched the games. I've watched the highlights. I am a Jordan expert, and I am going to tell you that Jordan is better than LeBron, or LeBron is better than Jordan. No, No, not allowed. Not allowed. You basketball wannabes. That is not allowed. Yeah. You need to learn more, watch more, and we're not even going to get into that. But nonetheless, thank you, Nick. I appreciate you joining me for this one. Glad that you were able to talk to me about The Last Dance, and maybe I'll have you on again to talk about when we can expect the NBA season to get started again, because I think we've got some steps forward in the right direction that we might want to talk about quite soon. So maybe we'll have you back on for that as well.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate you, Nick. Thanks again. Please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iTunes, whatever. The YouTube page, search Derek Terrio or Isoball Podcast, and then Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all Isoball Pod or Isoball Podcast. You'll find it. And I'd appreciate it if you give me a sub, give me a look. Appreciate it, guys. Till next time. Peace.